Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast, the show for women who are seeking more fulfillment in life and simply not getting it from their current situation. We focus specifically on careers, but hey, we spend a lot of time in our careers, so making changes here will definitely create an impact in your overall happiness. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and my mission is to empower women to succeed. I believe that in order to powerfully own your career, you must decide and claim that you want to sit in the driver's seat. You must know that you deserve better and be willing to not only do the requisite work, but be willing to go out on a limb to ensure your success. Each episode focuses on profiling a leader who is clearly demonstrating ownership of their career. Join me and my guests as we explore career journeys and bring you actionable strategies to use to get into the driver's seat for your career. Because ultimately, your career is your responsibility. Let's get into the show.
Welcome to episode 11 of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I am so excited to have today's guest, Nicole Walker. And Nicole, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Nicole and I met. I feel like I know you, even though we haven't met in person. We met online, and I was a guest on her She Leads podcast. Was that season 1?
Season 1. Yeah, almost a year ago. Yep.
Yeah, season 1. And we've stayed connected, the true power of networking. We stayed connected and, really support one another online. And I'm so pleased to bring her here today because I really believe that she is in the driver's seat for her career. Nicole, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you are currently doing.
I'll introduce myself as I do on my podcast, which I say I am a mother, a businesswoman, and a leader. And what I'm currently doing is I have 3 huge things going, 4, but 3 as far as business. I'm the founder and success strategist of Nicole Walker Network, and that's a leadership development and strategic planning company. And what I do there is I help entrepreneurs to work on organizational management, work on employee retention and engagement, as well as working on professional development. All of those tie together to help businesses to actually scale and own their part of the world, so to say, right? And I also am, you mentioned, the creator, host, and producer of She Leads podcast, Leadership Empowerment for Women of Color. And in She Leads podcast, I actually interview female entrepreneurs about various leadership topics to get their leadership insight and advice to help other women or individuals in general to be leaders and just own their leadership capabilities and skills. And then I also still work in corporate, so that's a whole nother bag in itself, so to say. I still work in corporate as a training coordinator for a leading telecommunications company. And like I said, I'm the mom of 2 great children. I have a daughter in college and I have a 5-year-old son. So my life is extremely busy, nonstop, full action.
Absolutely. I was going to say, how do you do all of that, Nicole, and be in the driver's seat?
Yes, right. I wonder myself, but I make it happen.
My goodness. I know you do. Can you tell us what was the career-defining moment that signified for you that you were in the driver's seat? And what I mean by that is that you own the outcome of your career. What happened for you that signified the driver's seat?
I would say that when I originally realized I was in a driver's seat is when I no longer had fear. Right? I didn't second guess myself. I just really knew what I was good at, which was finding strategies to do things better. I would often redo my lead, like my team lead would give me stuff and I'm looking at it like, this isn't it. And I would redo the stuff and really make it what it needed to be for business results. Like it's not about what's the word I'm looking for? It's not about feelings, so to say. It's about what's going to drive the results that we're looking for. And that's what my ultimate goal was. And I did that without second guessing myself, without fear. And that's when I really realized that this is what I'm good at. And this is what I have to offer the world. At that time, I was offering it in corporate. And it wasn't really received the way I wish it was received, but that I did it. And I was proud of myself for doing what I was skilled at and not having fear behind it.
You keep mentioning no fear, and I'm going to take a detour a little bit here and explore that a bit. How does one get to life or living without fear? What are strategies that you have used to eradicate fear?
I would say just not worrying about what people think, not worrying about the outcome. When you feel something, your gut, your intuition, when you know this is good, you just do it. I mean, even if it's not good, you just do it and you find out on the back end what you need to change or how you need to adjust, but you just go for it. And that's what allows you to grow and really find out what you're made of.
Is there any tools or resources that you use to help you build that muscle to be resilient and to just keep going without fear? What has been helpful to you?
I would say lately what has been helpful to me is She Leads podcast, actually like talking to all of these different women about their leadership. And you'll hear that that's the main thing that they talk about is no fear, like just go for it, especially moving into the entrepreneur realm. That's a little shaky for me. It's one thing working for corporate, you're getting a steady check every week. You have a defined work task and things like that. But when you're moving into being an entrepreneur, it's a little gray, right? It's a gray area. You don't know. You're kind of trying things. You're seeing what works and what doesn't work. And a lot of these successful entrepreneurs, that's what they talk about. Do it scared. Do it anyway. Just do it. If you don't get it right, at least you'll learn. So I say I don't lose. I either win or I learn. So once you change your mindset, it's really a mindset shift, right? Once you change your mindset and get yourself out of worrying or thinking that there is a right or wrong. Like I've been battling with that concept lately. What is right or wrong? Where's the book? Who created it? Like life is what it is, right? You determine what's right for you and what's not right for you. And that may be different for what's right for another person and what's not right for them. So really, what is this concept of right and wrong? Or you did it, good or bad, or so to say. So it's a very gray area, but you just have to go for what you feel good about within your person or what you're skilled at, because sometimes your passion and your skills may be different. So you got to figure out which one of those can make you successful the way you choose to be. And then you just go for it, try things, and don't stop.
I love that. What I love, I think, is that as I'm interviewing these different leaders, there is commonality in themes that are bubbling up. And one of them is mindset, because I had a guest a couple episodes ago and she talked about the power of mindset. And it's refreshing to, again, revisit mindset in this episode and the importance of it. Just, embracing fear. I like to think of the book that is near and dear to my heart is Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. And one of my all-time favorite books and so helpful. So that's why I wanted to sort of explore if anything had helped you to really be strong in the mindset space and to move forward, despite fear.
Yes. And I would say the podcast. And of course, I'm a big meme person, right? So I remember this meme that I saw, and it's like a little Tinkerbell, and she's standing on a cliff, and she's like, well, what if I fall? And it said, oh dear, but what if you fly? So you're on a cliff, you're deciding what you're going to do. Are you going to jump? So what if I fall? But what if you fly? So that's kind of what you think about. Like, okay, you may fall, but you also may fly, and you won't ever know unless you jump off that ledge.
Nice. If you can find that, I would love if you would send it to me, because I certainly would put it on the show notes, because I think that's powerful. It's simple yet profound. Right?
Yes, I'll send it to you. No problem.
Please do. What would you say, Nicole, is the formula for owning your career?
I would say the formula for owning your career is being bold, right? We talked about taking risks. I would say also understanding that no doesn't have to be final. Now, this is something that I battled with during my corporate career. Like, it was a time where I went into a shell and I stopped trying and I kind of gave up because I was so tired of hearing no. But now I realize that it doesn't matter how many times you hear no. It's so many individuals out there that are successful that heard no hundreds of times. And they kept going until they heard yes. So you have to just keep going and keep pushing. right? And that makes me think of recently, I actually referred to this, I think, on one of my podcasts, where I was reading about the author of the Dr. Seuss books.
Mm.
So the author of the Dr. Seuss books, I forget the number of times, but he had been told no so many times that he was headed to like throw all the books away and burn the books. And then he bumped into one person on his way to throw the books away. And that's the person that actually got him to be the Dr. Seuss that we know him to be, or to be the author of the Dr. Seuss series. And also another thing that changed my mindset and really, or another thing as far as formula, is the KFC story. Mm-hmm. So like this was, when I first heard this KFC story, this was a time when I'm in my career and I'm sort of like, oh, my life is like, I don't know how I got here. You know, my life didn't suck, but it sucked for me, right? So people on the outside may say, oh, you're living the dream. But if you feel empty inside, then it's not your dream, right? It may be someone else's dream. So I remember watching I think it was like a web video where it kind of went over his life. How, you know, in his 20s, he lost his job. His wife left him. He went bankrupt. He did all of this stuff that was such a negative impact on him. And then I think he even turned it around and he did better. But then when he did better, he did worse again. But not until he was 65 did he start KFC. At 65 years old. And I know people, like, I'm in my 30s. I know people that are in their 30s, they're like, oh, it's too late for me. And I'm like, no, it's not too late for you because it's not too late for me. You know, so we have to change the way we think, right? We think that things are supposed to happen. Oh, by 20, you're supposed to be married. Oh, you're supposed to be in the house with the white picket fence. But there is no rules to this game called life. Sort of like what I said as far as what's good or bad, what's right or wrong. There's no rules. It may take you longer than it takes the next person, but you have to just keep going and keep trying until you fulfill yourself. Because you know how you feel. You know if you feel empty or if you feel like this is it. So you have to keep going until you fulfill yourself and feel like this is it. I'm winning.
Awesome. I love that. I love there is no rule. Talk to us about risk, because you mentioned that in your formula and how you have handled taking risk in your career.
Yes, I would say risks are very important. Without risks, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. So I would say I would consider myself a serial entrepreneur. I have started several different businesses in the past, and I can say that they weren't successful because I didn't believe in it. I didn't put my all into it. So, but even just trying, right? Just getting myself out there. That was all the foundation and the groundwork and the footwork that I needed to let me know that I could do something more than what I was currently doing. And I wouldn't have gotten there unless I took that risk to actually, my first business was owning a recording studio and being the CEO over a record label. And this was my ex-husband was into music, but I'm very business oriented, you know, so a person may be into music, but you may know the business piece and you guys come together and make things happen. And I would even say, like with this podcast, like I knew, okay, women of color, I even battled with women of color because I didn't want people to think I was racist. Like I'm not a racist, but I know that women of color do not have as much privileges as women without color. So this is something that I wanted to do with them. Like this was a risk. That was a risk to actually try to put out something that's specifically for women of color, but yet I owned it. And I decided I don't care what anyone else thinks. Like I had one of my close friends. She's like, are you a racist? And I'm like, no, I'm just a representative for the underrepresented. So you have to take those risks and you have to own what you're doing and be confident in what you're doing. So again, and that goes back to mindset, right? One quote, I'm trying to think who, I put out quotes all the time on my Instagram, but I'm trying to think who said it. I don't know. But it says, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Mm-hmm. You're right. Mm-hmm. So, you know, your risk is just doing what you think will work or not. I mean, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But what are you thinking behind it? That'll determine whether your risk will be beneficial.
I love what you said. I wanted to stop you, but I said, no, let her keep going, because I recently did a podcast and I was telling her, this is not my first LLC. So when you said that, my first foray into the entrepreneurial space, I think this is my fourth try. And it's so important to keep trying until you get it right. And so I love what you said. Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Can you think of a moment in your career that you avoided responsibility? And what did you do to overcome it?
Yes, so I kind of alluded to that previously. So what happened was in corporate, again, like I said, as far as when I realized that I was good at strategy and process improvement and figuring out better ways to get to the end goal and get there faster and get there with less money, I was very excited about that. And I would offer my insight to my team lead, to my manager. And a lot of times I get no. I get no. And then what really irked my nerves about those no's is that 2 years later, they would do the thing that I recommended 2 years prior without any accolades to me. So then I kind of really, it hardened my heart, so to say. It hardened my heart, and I stopped giving advice. I stopped coming up with those insights, which I had them, but I didn't give them to them. I just gave up, so to say. And it made me dead inside. Even though I didn't feel appreciated by them, I realize now that I should have never stopped being who I was, because that was me. And coming up with those insights is my gift. And not being able to share my gift made me, like I said, dead inside. And I kind of felt like, what am I doing? Why am I here? And what I had to do to get out of that rut was to just still kind of tell myself, so what if they say no? Just still keep on. I might not give as many insights and advice as I would, because I kind of know the culture and the climate that I'm in. But what it also pushed me to do was it pushed me to start my own business. And I'm very grateful for that, because when I realized it's like, this is what makes you feel alive. So if you can't do it here, you have to find somewhere where you can do it. So whether that means that you need to start your own business, whether that means you need to move to a new team, whether that means you need to move to another company, that's what you need to do to always make sure that you feel alive, because it's so important that we live and not just exist.
Well said. Well said. Well, what advice would you give to someone wanting to successfully own their career?
What advice? I would say do something, act, right? That's the biggest thing that a lot of people come up with grandiose ideas, and for some reason they don't act, right? I recently found out about a statistic. I'm actually going to be speaking at a big podcast conference in a few weeks. And I was talking to the guy that runs it, and he said that he's actually in contact with one of the major podcast platforms, right? That's going to be there. So he talking to the guy, he said, do you know how many people actually pay for podcast hosting, put content on the server, and never press send, never make it go live? Right? So just that leap of faith, taking that leap of faith in whatever it is that you do. If you like to take pictures, go take pictures and send those pictures out to whoever you need to send them out to get yourself out there. I think people like to do what makes them happy, but how can you monetize off of that? Or how can you get recognition off of what you love to do or what you're great at doing? And you need to figure that out and take that leap into doing it. And what's the worst case? Somebody can tell you no. I'm pretty sure we've all heard no 1,000,000 times over, and we may hear it 1,000,000 more times before we're no longer here on this earth. So we have to just try, just act, just do. And that's what I'll say is the way to take ownership. Oh, as well as figuring out either two things: what you're passionate about or what you really enjoy doing, what you're good at, or three things, excuse me. And one thing was what problem you want to solve. Like that's how you that's how you actually own your career or really get into what you're doing. Figure out what you're passionate about, figure out what you're good at doing, or figure out what problem that really irks your nerves that you no longer want to see on this earth. And you go out there and you solve that problem.
Awesome. What I wanted to say when you said, just act, my mom has a saying, and I always remember it. She says, nothing beats a fail but a try.
Exactly.
And, so true. we've got to press through, keep trying until we get it right.
Yeah, exactly.
And even if we don't get it right, there's so much lesson that you're learning on the journey to,
yes.
Success, or as you define it. But I always found that there was a lot more growth when I failed. Like my background is project management, and the biggest lesson that I learned is from a failed project, and it stays with me today. The lessons from that, because it was just so impactful. But I learned a lot, and I changed who I was as a result of that experience. So I think you learn a lot from the things that don't go as planned.
Yes, I agree with that totally.
Well, what resources, Nicole, online or otherwise, have you found to be helpful to you in owning your career?
I would say, and I think I alluded to this previously, is right now podcasting is very hot. I mean, you can find a podcast on almost any and every topic across the globe, that from personal stuff to business stuff to financial. So podcasts, if you're an auditory person and you like to hear things. I believe in lifelong learning. I'm a person, I love to be in the classroom. I mean, I actually teach, so it's not hard to kind of put that together, right? But being in the classroom, taking those leadership trainings, taking the trainings on project management, on business analysis, and that's, we share that same background. But taking those trainings on whatever topic it is that you need to know more about. I mean, I cannot less emphasize how important training is and getting that education that you need. Even reading articles. Reading articles are awesome. Reading books. Even going into social media groups, Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups that talk about certain topics that are very important or that you want to learn more in. There's a lot of people out there that have knowledge and they're willing to share their knowledge. So actually conversing with people to learn. But those are some of the best resources that I can say that I have gratefully tapped into that have helped me to continue along my lifelong learning journey. And I'm not done.
Awesome. Can you tell us just a little bit about your experience with the LinkedIn and how you've used it? Because I know some people are LinkedIn shy.
Well, I love LinkedIn because I go after a professional client and LinkedIn is a professional place. But LinkedIn is great because I like it because people actually, like I said, share those articles. I've actually just recently written an article and put it on LinkedIn, and it kind of took on a life of its own, which I was like, oh, wow, where it didn't do that really on Facebook. So LinkedIn is more for the professional crowd, more for the people that's looking for education and business ventures, as opposed to Facebook is more social and friendly, more friendly and personable, so to say. Yeah, so that's really, I would say, how I use LinkedIn, getting to those articles. People put videos, but videos to me are more, Facebook, YouTube. Articles and people connection, is the way that I use LinkedIn myself. I know recently they have something, LinkedIn Learning. So LinkedIn now has training that's coming out. And I think that that's kind of taking on a life of its own. So LinkedIn Learning is something that your listeners can Google or go in and check out, because I think they actually have classes there as well that you can get into, and webinars and things of that nature.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any parting words before you tell our listeners how to get in contact with you or stay connected?
Parting words. I would just say to own your career. Be comfortable with who you are. Be proud of who you are. If you're not proud of who you are, figure out how to make yourself proud of who you are. Make whatever necessary changes you need to make personally or career-wise so that you feel good about yourself. And when you feel good about yourself, you can own everything about you, career and otherwise. Awesome.
Well, tell us how to get in contact with you.
Okay, and I'll keep it very simple. You can go to my website, NicoleWalker.net. That's NicoleWalker.net. From there, you can check out my website. You can go to the About to find out more about me. You can also link out to all of my social media platforms from my website.
Awesome. Well, Nicole, it has been my pleasure to have you as a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I do believe that you are in the driver's seat for your career and definitely very inspirational. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. It is my hope that you enjoyed today's episode. You can check out the show notes for this episode on the SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org website by clicking the podcast menu. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and tell a friend or two about it.